special edition of the Darden Admissions podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. So this episode is all about the MS in Business Analytics program here at the University of Virginia. This program, a 12-month specialized master's, is a partner program between the McIntire School of Commerce and the Darden School of Business. And in exciting news, there is a new co-academic director from the Darden faculty for the MSBA program, Raj Venkatesan. Raj is a member of the marketing faculty here at the Darden School, and he and I recently connected via Zoom to talk more about his background, his research interests, what he's working on currently, and why he's excited to serve as co-academic director for the MSBA program. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. So without further ado, here's my interview with Raj Venkatesan. Raj, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Brett. It's my pleasure.
Well, it's great to have you here. It's been a little while since our paths have crossed. I'm thinking back a few, maybe a couple months, a few weekends ago in Roslyn, we were both walking to a philanthropy fundraising event for the Executive MBA class of 2022. I think that's the last time I saw you. So how have you been? How are you doing?
Well, I've been good. It was spring break, so got some time to spend with the family out west. But before that, I spent a week in San Francisco with our executive MBA students for a course we have there called Marketing Tech Products, where we meet executives in the West Coast in tech firms like Airbnb, Google, and Lyft. And that was a lot of fun. One of my favorite times of the year to go visit the West Coast and also learn with the students. So that was a lot of fun.
That course was virtual for the past couple of years. And there's a great story on the Darden report, the big pivot that you did with that course. But it must be nice to be back in person.
Oh, it was great to be back. It was great. I think, the last 2 years, that was a big challenge. It was the first course that we shifted virtual. But the speakers were also glad to be in person, and it was a great experience. And now we have all our classes face-to-face, live, and so it's wonderful.
I think of that as an elective that has been really popular with executive MBA students. Raj, you can correct me on this, but the way that I remember that course is when it was maybe originally announced, there was perhaps dual enrollment, both full-time and exec students, and there was so much exec demand that I think it actually became an executive MBA elective.
You are correct. Yes, it was dual. So this goes to how things are a bit fluid for us with all these different programs, right? That innovation happens in one place and finds a house somewhere else. And so that's great to have all these different formats that we can try out new ways of engaging with students, and they take a life of their own. And so this was started with the residentials, and we then made it for both, and then it became primarily with exec MBA, also because there's a little bit more flexibility in the exec MBA calendar to have these 1 week courses.
That's a great point on the 1 week electives. That's been an increasingly popular elective option with executive MBA students, perhaps looking to get ahead on their credits. And to your earlier point about having these formats and potential for enrollment in a course by students from multiple formats, that's something that's absolutely part of our planning for the part-time MBA program, thinking about part-time MBA students when they complete the core and get to that elective period. Perhaps they would be interested in taking electives with the executive MBA students. Perhaps their schedules could even permit them to take a full-time MBA elective.
Absolutely. The more we can do this, and the better it is for us and the students. And if you think about it, this also expands the network of the students. Now they get to see more students within the Darden family and expand their network. And especially with the professional degree programs, as a lot of the students are within the DC metro area, it's great to be able to have a wider network for all the benefits and value that it provides.
That's a great point, particularly if you think about the inaugural cohort of the part-time program. There'd be about 65 students, but those 65 students could tap into the classes in the executive MBA program, which is about 260, 270 students, those two classes combined. So to your point about expanding the network. Well, Raj, let's talk a little bit more about you. Tell us more about who you are and your background.
So I teach marketing in the Darden Business School. I am the area head for marketing, and my specialty is in technology and marketing and AI in marketing. And how I came to this, my undergrad degree actually is in computer engineering, and completed it in '97 in India. I say that mainly because around my final year in my engineering, I took classes in this new thing called neural networks. And I did my final project on genetic algorithms, and both of which are now the mainstay of AI toolkits that we talk about, right? And neural networks have evolved into deep learning networks. And so that was my first introduction to AI and analytics and data science. And I came to the United States to do my PhD in marketing. My PhD advisor told me that technology and computers, and he was prescient about that, are going to play a big role in marketing. And trust me, before this, marketing was all the magic and the Mad Men era. You know, there's a lot of creativity, inspiration strikes you one day and you create this mega campaign, but it was shifting even in the late 90s. And so I wanted to be part of that and part of the shift. And so I took classes in econ, marketing, consumer behavior, and found it really fascinating because I was an engineering student before that. And this is the first time I'm hearing about supply and demand. And I might be weird that way, but my world made sense after I saw the supply and demand curves. So I stuck around and finished my PhD, taught marketing research at UConn, and then marketing analytics here at UVA from 2006. And I've been teaching digital marketing since 2015. So that's my path to here. And I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. That is our home now. And my two sons were born here in Charlottesville.
Well, it feels like the internet had a big role to play in changing marketing, but of course, like smartphones and how we engage with all this kind of stuff, that there's a huge technology component to this. So if you've been looking at this since the 90s, I mean, what a span of time. I mean, the past two decades in marketing practices.
Yeah,
amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So marketing always has been influenced by technology. And I always say this quote in my class, that there is this quote from John Lasseter in Pixar about art. And he talks about how art inspires technology and technology inspires art. And I think that applies for marketing as well. Even from the old mass marketing, the technology of that time was television. And marketing was the first one to say, hey, this is a nice medium. We should be doing something here. And over the years, it has evolved into now, metaverse. Marketing will be there in the metaverse.
I feel like for a long time, marketing also, how do you learn about your customers? How do you gain insights about who they are and what they're interested in and how they engage with your product? There's a lot more data available to companies these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, rightly said, Brett, it is this urge and this motivation to learn about customers and engage with them where they are that has led marketing through this exciting journey from television to metaverse.
Well, I'm thinking about the courses that you teach, and some of the courses, I mean, we started off by talking about the elective, go to San Francisco, you're hearing from folks at Airbnb, Google, these kind of cutting edge companies working in this digital marketing space. And how do you keep your courses current and up to speed with something that's changing as rapidly as digital marketing or just marketing generally?
Oh, that's a great question. And it is one of the biggest challenges we face. Also, the most rewarding thing for us is first, it keeps us young, it keeps us current. We have to do it. In fact, our case studies, if they become more than 10 years old, students complain. Marketing, especially. And that's a good thing for us because they keep us on our toes and keep us current. How do we do that? It's tough. You like courses like the San Francisco elective, where we go to the Bay Area's West Coast, learn from companies, the case studies that we write, the projects that we engage with students, the independent studies, our research, our engagement with exec ed, our engagement in consulting with other companies. I think it's a combination of all of these that really helps us be current and hopefully also be part of the change that is happening in the business world.
One of the things that I've talked with Yael a lot, the senior dean for the professional degree programs here at the Darden School of Business, she talks a lot about how Darden faculty, their research is a little bit different than at other business schools, that this connection to actual practitioners and people who are doing this work out in the business world. That must be particularly fascinating for someone who's interested in marketing.
Absolutely. So that's one of the reasons that attracted me to Darden as well. Right? The mission of the school, I'm paraphrasing here, is to develop responsible readers through thought leadership and education. And that's the balance between teaching and research, and this emphasis with practice through all the activities that we do, which is unique among business schools. And I agree with this mission. With my research, I am always looking at how trends in the industry are affecting marketing and what we as academics have to say about it, and also how marketing can evolve with tech. And that is definitely consistent with the mission at Darden around um, practice oriented research, relevant research, which is also rigorous. And it is great to see a business school that believes in this mission. And it is not an easy mission because it's not popular or in vogue among other business schools. But we do it because it's the right thing to do. And it's gratifying that when we do this, we are also successful and are able to reach many students.
One of the things that must be interesting to faculty, given this focus on practitioners and how things are actually working in the business world, and trying to get that feel and incorporating that into your research and what you're looking at, is to teach students who are working while pursuing their degree and bring that real-time experience to the classroom. I know you've taught in the executive MBA program for a number of years. We started this conversation by talking about an elective that you lead for executive MBA students. What do you enjoy about teaching working professional students?
It's one of the great pleasures of my life. First of all, I respect the balancing act that working professionals do to maintain a full-time job, spend time with the family, as many of our students are married with kids, and complete a full-time degree. In fact, in the exec MBA program, we've had physicians who are in the front line during the COVID pandemic and still finishing the MBA. I mean, that's superhuman at some level. And I find it rewarding to teach these professional students because they have a direct application of the class discussions to their work. And they also bring their experience at work to inform the class discussions. This makes the experience all the more better for me and for everyone in the class. Right? If I'm teaching, there's this case we teach on elevators, right? On selling elevators. in marketing. I just said, like, marketing case is more than 10 years old. People complain. This one is like maybe 30 plus years old, but it's a classic. We do have to have some of these because it teaches some fundamentals. I bring this up because in the professional degree program, there's always someone who's in real estate development or construction. And imagine like teaching the sales process or the buying process for elevators. It just becomes real when someone with that experience who's probably just going through this right now, and I have had every year somebody like that in the classroom educating the rest of the class about how this process is in real detail, and you see a person who's there who is going through this. That makes it real, concrete, good to understand, instead of me theorizing and saying, hey, this is how it happens. So that's a real game changer for me. I think that is wonderful to see. And things like this happen in every class I teach, in every case study. You'll find students who are living the case. And that really makes it wonderful. And I'm also very thrilled whenever our professional students tell me they apply the tools, techniques, or concepts they learned in school at their work, or they're interviewing somewhere and they're asking them questions about, like, customer lifetime value, and say, hey, you told me that, now I was able to talk about, that's really gratifying for the faculty, because that's our mission and that's what we strive for. And it's a very fulfilling experience. And so all of this to say that the classroom is focused on the now and the practical, but we also learn about theories and fundamentals, and we strategize about long-term effects. We speculate about scenarios in different worlds. This is school after all. Where else do you have the liberty to think like that? Big thoughts. But we also focus on the now and the present. And that nice mix of practice and theory really makes the professional degree students a real joy to work with.
Well, before we transition the conversation to the occasion for this interview, your new role as co-academic director for the MSBA program, I want to ask one more question along these lines. And I've had the opportunity over the past couple of years to talk to a fair number of Darden faculty on the podcast about the research interests, what they're looking at currently. And I'm curious, Raj, are there any things you're working on, anything that you would want to share here with our podcast listeners that have kind of caught your attention and that maybe you're working on a case about or an article about?
Oh, absolutely. So my research now is primarily focused on AI and how that affects marketing. And I have a book that was released last year on AI in marketing, which provides a 5-step roadmap for companies to develop an AI capability in their marketing function. And in terms of academic peer-reviewed journal articles, I am working on a research that looks at the effect of GDPR and CCPA privacy regulations on returns firms get from AI investments, especially in the marketing realm, because regulations talk about how you cannot use this data, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, or you have to declare. And a lot of industry chatter and anecdotal chatter is around, oh, this is costly, this is going to increase the cost for companies. What we see is that it also has a benefit. And especially if you're investing AI and directing towards customer experience and cybersecurity, firms get a higher return in the presence of regulations. And that is the way I think about it. Is if you think about, go back a little in the past and think about credit card usage. All of us use credit cards because we have Equifax and we have a way, Consumer Protection Bureau, and we have a way to redress fraud. And in countries where that is not that strong, credit card usage is lower. So if you take the same idea, you can see that if you have privacy regulations, it'll actually help the company because consumers have greater trust in interacting with the firms and feel protected. And so we, in this research, we say firms should embrace this idea and work with governments to have regulations because it's in the long run going to help them.
That's so interesting because we have this strain of thought and commentary, at least in the United States, that kind of pushes at regulation. It says regulation is going to slow down business. It's not good for business to have this kind of heavier hand here of long arm of government.
Yeah.
You're making a different argument.
Yeah. And I'm not saying total regulation either, but what I'm saying is, like there is some value and we have to figure out this balance, which is what makes it tricky for regulations.
All right. Well, thank you, Raj, for indulging all my questions about your research interests and what you're working on right now. I do want to talk about this new role you're moving into as co-academic director for the MSBA program. This program is a really unique program at the university. It's a partnership between the McIntire School of Commerce and the Darden School of Business. So there's an academic director from the McIntire side. There's an academic director from the Darden side, and you will be the new academic director representing Darden as part of this partnership. So I'm curious, what attracted you to this role?
Well, Brad, I'm really excited about this new role. The MSBA, as you mentioned, is really unique with the collaboration with the McIntire School. And it's also the youngest of the Darden programs, and I would also say very innovative. And that's what excites me about this new venture, right? And the program is future focused. It's about how business is changing. It's addressing some of the changes we have been just chatting about, and it is really honing into the center of this whole transformation of business to be more data driven, and it's reacting to the digital transformation of businesses and preparing students for this new world, which is really consistent with the beliefs that I hold and what I have been working on. And all of this really excites me with the innovative nature of this program, the collaboration with McIntire, the focus on digital transformation, data analytics. And so I jumped at the opportunity to help steer the ship forward. And I think we have the wind behind our sails here. This has been a great program, and the prior leadership have really put in some good things in the program, and I look forward to the next phase.
We've had a couple of prospective student recruitment events over the past couple of months. It's been great to participate in these events. We had a current student panel back in March. We had an alumni event just earlier this week. And there's a few things that come up when you listen to people talk about this program. So from the current student perspective, there's a real team orientation and collaboration that's baked into the program. As the students move through each module, there's 5 modules, and there's a team project that runs, that takes place during each module. And so you're working a lot with your classmates and benefiting from all that diversity, people who do different things than you, have different backgrounds than you. And so there's this real participatory aspect to the learning experience as well. Listening to the alumni, one of the things that I thought was so fascinating, this is MS in business analytics, right? It's not just analytics, it's not just business, it's the two things together. And so there were alumni who said, look, I didn't have as much background in kind of the analytic tools and how to kind of work with the data, and I came for that. And then there were other people who said, I had a lot of technical background, but I didn't understand the communication side or the business concepts and how to speak to business people about the work that I was doing. And so the communication orientation, the interpersonal piece, but also there's a technical piece. Like there's an aspect of this program that kind of sits between these two things that I think is really cool when you hear people talk about it. And And I think that's probably one of the big values for students.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, in a company, you have to work with the business folks and the analytics folks and leaders. In my role in marketing, the successful marketers are the ones I always say are, especially now, are the ones who are connectors and collaborators, the ones who can work with analytics, the ones who can work with operations and finance. And so this teamwork is really important, not only for learning the concepts, but to be successful in the modern business. And that's certainly a real hallmark of our program, is that we have these application projects that are team oriented in each module for the students. And we have our classrooms are case discussion oriented. We can simulate the work environment, a conference room at a work within the class. And we have this person who is a marketing person and a person who's an analytics person learn from each other as you would at work. And we simulate that environment each and every day in our classrooms, and then apply all of that knowledge in these application projects every term, which means you have 5 different application projects that you would have completed. And the final project is a capstone project, which is a real time project. So you're addressing a real business problem, working with the client to solve real business problem using analytics. And what a great capstone to your year to really learn you're practicing what you learned when you're in the program before graduation. So you're already ready when you graduate to you're ready to work and be successful.
One of the things I've had the benefit of talking to both full-time MBA as well as executive MBA students on our admissions podcast. And one of the things that's pretty consistent as they reflect upon their time at Darden, and I think this also applies to MSBA students and resonates with a lot of what you're saying here and what I've heard from current students and alumni recently as they reflect on the program, is the ability to work with people from very different perspectives and understand we're looking at the same information, but that person is coming from a different place and seeing something different in this case, or approaching from a different place than I am. And so as I'm talking to them about how I'm looking at the problem, I'm being mindful of their approach. I'm thinking of the things that are important to them. And there's a lot of growth that happens over the course of the program for people as communicators. And that might be one of the more underrated skills that people gain through these programs, but it's so essential for where people are going in their careers.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's a great point, Brett. With analytics, in my experience, what I have seen in the industry is exactly what you said. You have to be able to communicate, distill the insights, and be able to affect change. And and that has been true throughout history. Now, I tell this example about we have this tool regression that we do in business analytics. And there's a whole controversy about who invented that. And the person who's successful and has more name recognition and has been most effective is the one who created an algorithm to do this and wrote it down step by step on how to do it. So was able to communicate what it is, right? And so think about it. This has been since ever in human history, that you need to have the ability to influence and persuade others. And that is true even today with all this technology, maybe even more important with the complexities of the situations that we face, that you need to be able to understand and connect with the others. And all of the teamwork and the emphasis that we have on leadership and communication, and through different courses like visualization, and even every term you're practicing presenting, because the module projects are not just you do it and submit a report. You have to present to faculty and sometimes external clients, and you're graded on that and you're given feedback. And of course, you're trained to do that before you go and present. We're not just going to throw you into the pulpit and say, go sink or swim. You have our faculty helping you develop this, but you get that feedback in a more safer environment and develop that skill and muscle memory to be able to, structure the problem, understand the data, do data engineering, do data analysis, extract insights, communicate, persuade, and see what it implies for your business strategy. So you go through that whole process of a marketing, of an analytics project, and you do that every module. You do that every time. And by the time you have done it 5 times at a minimum, as you go through this year. So that really gets you trained to be a very effective business analytics leader.
Well, there's a couple of things that you shared here that I want to follow up on. You noted that this is a sort of future focused, or looking forward with where things are going. Obviously, there's so much conversation around big data and companies trying to wrestle with all the information that they have. The other thing that is also true here is, I think for students, as they progress through these programs, they start to pick up momentum, right? They start to realize like how they're growing and changing. And particularly when you're dealing with something that might be as intimidating as, like, for many of our students, they don't necessarily have direct background with some of this stuff, but they're learning. And so what do you share to prospective students, who you're talking to, people looking at this program, who may be really interested in this, but, may not necessarily feel like, I haven't done this or that or the other thing. This comes up all the time with our MBA programs. And I'm curious to hear what you might say about the MSBA program.
Yeah, that's a really important point you bring up here. And for us, I think in this 1-year program, we are in it with you through the journey. As you said, some people are maybe more business oriented and not analytics oriented, and some are analytics and not business. And the way these classes are structured is that it helps each other and the teams. You're learning from your peers and the faculty. And even like, so for example, the elephant in the room, you need to know coding to do analytics. Well, I have 2 thoughts on that. One is coding can be learned. It's like a language. It's like learning a new language. And we will help you through that process to learn this language. And through these different modules, we can start with the basics, but then add, and we're building resources for you to pick up on the coding if you have not had coding in the background, and that will be personalized to you. But you learn the tools of the trade, like Power BI, Tableau, R, Python, etc., SPSS, and so that you can be a self-starter at work. On the other hand, this brings to my second thought on this. As I look in the industry, what is happening is, as software is getting more and more sophisticated, the need for coding is actually decreasing. You are going to see a lot more cloud-based analytics services provider. Any cloud provider, like even now AWS, Google, or Microsoft, have drop-down menu-driven analytics platforms, where the need and the platform has code in the background, but you are primarily clicking. like you would online in any website, right? It's not as easy at buying on Amazon, but I think it will eventually get there. But if you, so that is my second point is, yes, there's a lot of chatter about coding, and we will give you the skills to do that. And we are confident that when you go through this program, you will be able to code, and you won't burn out doing that. There is a way to do it in a way that you can, in bite size, you can take it, that it'll help you. And having the case discussions and the modules and the projects really help you learn it in a way that is more application oriented, that makes it easier to manage and is more effective also. But at the same time, if you look forward, and it's already happening, and it's the direction is that way, that the emphasis is going to be on insights, intuition, and judgment more than coding. And that is why our program is valuable, because we focus on both giving you the practical skills, but also developing your judgment and intuition about business, and having a more decision oriented approach in our case discussions, that you can develop that skill, which I think is going to be the more valuable resource in the years to come as our students graduate.
What you just shared about intuition and judgment makes a lot of sense. I think, again, maybe to the earlier points in the conversation about people have access to the data, you can run all these tools and things, but at the end of the day, you've got to make a decision with it. And then you've got to socialize that decision and get people bought into how you're seeing things, or, continue to iterate on whatever that idea might be. But there's always that's where the human element really comes in, right? So it's interesting to think about what you're sharing in this context of like machines and computers and humans. And what will the machines do, and how can they be helpful to the humans? But at the end of the day, what's the real human
Yes.
portion of that?
Yes, absolutely. So if we all drive cars, we don't know how the car works. And over time, I think the analytics will get there. Of course, there are jobs there are people who make cars, and you will have people who are working on building these analytics platforms. And that's a fascinating industry to be in as well. But if you want to if your passion is not there, but you want to work for Nestle, or you want to work for Amazon in operations, then you don't need to know how the car is made. You need to know to run it and drive it. And that's basically, so that's what I'm telling here is, like, you need the judgment. But what is needed across the board is getting the insights and knowing what the insights mean, right? Like, people think of data as something that is just like, just happens to be there. But data is generated by humans interacting with brands, or interacting with each other in people analytics, or humans moving packets up and down a supply chain. So that data has humans behind it. And understanding, so if you're a data scientist or a business analyst, you really need to understand what humans and motivations generated that data when you're analyzing. That's what you're doing with your data analysis. So you cannot separate the humans and the judgment from the data analysis. And that's why it is business analytics, is because you are now able to connect the two and come up with insights and ideas that you don't get if you don't look at the data, right? Like, for example, if you're looking at there's the Moneyball example always, right? But like, even in like sports analytics, there's a lot of stuff that is like, in common wisdom that has been proven wrong, right? So like in baseball, the famous Moneyball movie, I wouldn't go into details there, But I'll give you one example in basketball, right? The free throws, you throw with your hands up, right? Above the head. That's the worst form to do free throws. You're most effective if you're doing underarm free throws. But we never do that, right? Shaq would be a much better, like creating all sorts of records if he just threw underarm. But we all know that can't happen. But so there is that too, right? So there is a lot of like in every sport, you have these things that we always do that have been proven to be not true and not the optimal strategy. And come like people who have learned that and who have seen this insight and can leverage that insight that others don't have tend to get a lot of benefits. And that's what we're trying to do in the business sense, is to question our commonly held assumptions using data. And some might hold true, some may not. And when it doesn't, you have an opportunity for business growth and innovation.
Well, Raj, one last question for you here. Then we've got some prospective students who are perhaps listening to this conversation, interested in the MSBA program, and thinking about potential next steps. And what advice would you share with someone who's looking at the MSBA program and kind of thinking about, all right, maybe I'm going to apply now? What would you share?
So the advice I would share is that this is doable. This is something which is definitely going to give you the skills to be successful in the future. And it's an exciting program. It's a great application of business and analytics. So the program is hybrid. So it's online plus face-to-face. So it allows students to learn while they're working, but also provides a great networking opportunity, which is possible only if it's face-to-face. Right. And you have access to the Darden, McIntire, UVA networks. So that's a really broad network. And we've seen that on average, there's a 19% increase in salary for our graduates after they join. So that's the bottom line. Let's just understand that that is there. But I think what I would share is planning is important, because this is something you're a professional student, you're all still working, and also doing this full time. So I understand it's like, it's tough. And to be successful, students have done this in the past and have been successful. And they have been successful when they have planned their life out for a year ahead, but you kind of have to do that to be able to do this. And that's what I would say as the number one thing to keep in mind before starting this program. Take time to talk to your boss at work, co-workers, to your family members, and you need the support of all of them to go through this.
Well, so much of what you just shared resonates with a lot of what we talk about on the Exec MBA podcast with our executive MBA students, and engaging all of those stakeholders in your life, talking with them before you start the program, as you were going through the program. For MSBA students, it's pretty similar for executive MBA students as well. How to manage your time through the modules, right? So every module, new challenge, you're working on something new, your life, work, those things won't remain static. You'll continue to have other things competing for your time and shifting around. And so checking in with yourself, checking in with the other people in your life as you're negotiating all of this. It's really, really great advice, and recognizing that like there's no perfect way to do this. Everybody is, finding their way through. Some weeks are going to be pretty tough. Some weeks will be a little bit easier, but you are not alone. To your earlier point, there's so much support from the faculty, from the staff, and of course from your classmates. So Raj, I really appreciate your taking the time. Congratulations on the new role. So excited to have you as the new academic director here from the Darden side for the MSBA program. So enjoyed hearing about your research and hearing your perspectives on this program. Such a treat catching up with you this morning.
Thank you, Brett. Nice talking with you. And I'm looking forward to meeting our prospective students in the MSBA program. Um, Thank you for having me.
And that was my interview with Raj Venkatesan, a member of the marketing faculty here at the Darden School of Business and the new co-academic director for the one-year MS in Business Analytics program at UVA. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at Darden, that's DARDEN, @virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.